today, very briefly talking about the University of Edinburgh's whole university approach to modern slavery. And you've probably seen media reports in recent years, especially about the issue of modern slavery, that it's happening locally here in the UK and also globally. And there's been a lot more attention on this issue. Slavery encompasses things like forced labour, people being treated as commodities, restrictions on movement, and human trafficking, among many other things. So the UK Modern Slavery Act 2015 requires businesses to report annually on what they're doing to mitigate risks of modern slavery in their own businesses and their supply chains. And this also applies to universities with a certain turnover. So here at the University of Edinburgh, we've decided to go beyond these requirements of looking at your own business and your supply chains, although supply chains are a very important part of it, to look at our whole sphere of influence. So looking at what's happening on campus, what influence we have locally and influence we have globally. And so in terms of progress, we have, these are just some examples. You can find out a lot more on the link on the bottom left there. We've updated our contract terms and conditions to include modern slavery requirements. We've been carrying out research. We've been engaging with our suppliers and also our fund managers from a responsible investment point of view. We have developed in-house staff training, with 100 plus having taken that so far. It's online and also face-to-face. And we've been carrying out awareness raising through events and social media to reach staff, students and the general public. And we've been collaborating with various external organisations, and this is just the start. So that was my very, very quick talk about modern slavery. If you want to get in touch with any questions or want to find out more, look at the link and feel free to send me an email. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, the initiatives that we run within Advanced HE are very much aimed at reducing inequalities at the organisational level, yet we hope that they'll have a wider benefit to society as a whole. And the initiatives will also be relevant to SDG 7 in relation to reducing gender inequalities. Two of the main initiatives that we run are the Athena SWAN programme and the Race Equality Charter. Now, the Athena SWAN programme has changed since it was initially established, and many of you may now be aware that it actually covers all areas, not just sciences. And the Charter is effectively a tool for advancement of gender equality, to improve the representation of women, the progression and their success. It also, however, covers men in recognition that you can't often have change without including men, but also recognizing that in some subject areas, men are also underrepresented, for instance, in areas of teaching, nursing, and veterinary sciences. So we're very much looking to try to encourage a better gender balance in terms of the intake of students, but also longer term in terms of the representation of men and women in senior roles, in academic committees and so forth. The Charter also covers professional and support staff now, as well as academic staff. Universities who sign up to Athena SWAN, and the majority now have, but if you have any questions as to whether your university is signed up in relation to SWAN or the Race Equality Charter Mark, do let me know, and there's also a tool on the website for checking. But HEIs take a commitment when signing up to addressing unequal gender representation across academic disciplines and professional and support functions. They also commit to tackling the gender pay gap, which is very key, as you may know from recent government requirements for the publication of gender pay information. I'm now going to move on to REC. The Race Equality Charter Mark is also based on fundamental principles, and universities who sign up to it are required to recognise that racism is an everyday facet of UK society, and racial inequalities manifest themselves in everyday situations, processes and behaviours. Talking about race within higher education is often very difficult because many people think, oh, it doesn't affect HE, and yet from the work that we've undertaken, from analysing things like attainment gaps between different groups of students, we're very aware that something is certainly happening in the sector. And HEIs are required by signing up to REC to look at student progression and attainment and diversity in the curriculum, as well as the progression opportunities for staff, whether they be professional and support staff or academic staff. A lot of our work has been based on evidence that we have been gathering over a number of years, effectively since former ECU's establishment. Former ECU is Former Equality Challenge Unit, and it is now Advanced HE. We've been presenting that evidence over a number of years in our statistical reviews of the sector. They cover both staff and students, and really seek to highlight where the sector is at in terms of equality. You can download the latest 2018 stats report from our website, and you'll find within it a lot of interesting graphs, as one is illustrated. Also, we've tried to cover gender, age, disability, ethnicity. We also touch upon declaration of sexual orientation, gender identity within the report as well, and including religion and belief. Some of the key things that I just want to highlight are issues of representation of professors, and only 1 in 4 professors were women. Of these female professors, 91.6% were white, with only 8.4% of those identifying as BME. So there's clearly, there's been progress made in the sector in areas such as gender pay and reducing the attainment gap, but there is still an awful lot more work to be done and greater understanding, and through our work we're seeking to do that. And I'm going to stop now.
Okay, so this is gender pay gap. Ellen's just been talking about it. We reported our gender pay gap earlier this year, as did many other universities and organisations, and ours turned out to be only 3%, or just over 3%, which is quite low compared with the rest of the sector, which is 15.5%, as you can see on the slide. Our workforce is quite unusual. We are 65% female, and that is consistent at every level of the organisation, including the senior leadership team. And actually 65% of our professors are also female. So how do we do this? And what are we going to do to try and reduce the gap to nothing, if possible? We're starting with thinking about recruitment. So that's the top picture there. So recruitment and selection, making sure that people are properly trained to do recruitment and selection, making sure that we're using best selection methods, that we're using structured skills-based assessment tests, and that when we do interviews, they're properly structured and organised. We're also monitoring starting salaries. It's well known that women don't negotiate their starting salaries unless they're invited to do so, either through the job description or the person specification. So that's something else where we're certainly looking at. Moving on to flexible working, obviously women still are the main carers, so things like maternity leave, part-time working, the ability to flex start and finish times is important. We're also looking at the take-up of shared parental leave, because it turns out that partners and fathers really don't take it up. So are there ways in which we can encourage them and tell them that they have a right to take this leave? I think that would make a big difference. The other thing about flexible working is there seems to be an expectation that if you're in a senior role, you have to work full time. I'm not sure that's the case, because looking at our professors, quite a few of them do work part-time. So they're senior people, they're managing to do a part-time job and at a senior level. Moving on to things like reward and promotion schemes, making sure the criteria are clear, transparent, publicised, and that the people doing the assessment are trained and have a certain amount of background in being objective when they see the applications coming through. Finally, development opportunities, looking to make sure that we do provide development opportunities for all, and that includes running things on different days of the week and at different times so that everybody can access them. We think that's really important. The last part, I guess, is the measuring and monitoring, making sure that through every part of the employee life cycle we measure and we monitor and we report, and we report data through all the university committees, including to the governing body.